So today we're going to talk about what you should expect on chapters 8 and 9 on the final exam. Chapter 8, since we just tested on it, I'm not going to hit super heavy. All you should expect is a surface area or volume question. I'll put a prism on there, I'll put a cone on there, I'll put a sphere on there. And I might put the formulas on the board here. Then, so make sure you know just those formulas and how to use them. That requires that you also might need to know the areas of some of those shapes like, circles, rectangles, triangles. Hopefully you have all that information handy and written down from our test from last week. Then, for Unit 9, this was our circles chapter. So 9A was when we talked about different angles. So make sure that you know the angle formulas. So central angles were when the angle equaled the arc. Inscribed angles, you would double the angle to give you the arc. If you had interior angles, that was when we added the arcs and divided by 2. And for angles outside the circle, you would do outer minus inner over 2. Again, any of that information, feel free to write on this sheet of paper. Remember, that is just so that you don't have to dig through this big long set of notes in the middle of your final. All of that note-taking and digging and organizing yourself has been done before you ever open up the final exam. That's my purpose in giving you this sheet of paper. So you should expect a central angle question. You should expect an inscribed angle question. And I'm going to pick one of the either interior or outside angle questions to ask there. You should expect an area of sector question. Remember, arc length has to do with circumference. Area of a sector has to do with the area formula. That's your angles. For segments, the main ones that we talked about were chords and secants. So chords, if we had things that were inside the circle, then if we had a diagram like this was part times part equaling part times part. And then outside the circle, if we had something like this diagram, then this was outer times whole equals outer times whole. So those were our formulas for segments that were inside the circle, segments that were outside the circle. And you've got quite a few examples of those circle questions on the review if you want to practice. And again, if you want to write down one of those examples from the final exam review, just so that you remember how those equations look, then feel free to do that. Couple more things. I'll come back to this if you need it in just a minute. Couple more things. Equations times 2. This means you should expect 2 equation of a circle question. That means putting a circle on the graph. That means x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So what you should expect to see from that is that you should expect to see one problem where I give you the equation of the circle and ask you to put it on the graph. And you should expect a question where I give you the information and ask you to write the equation of the circle. And then finally, you'll notice I have here 2 vocab. So that means you should know the vocabulary that comes with all those type of circle questions. So, for example, you should know the difference between a radius and a diameter. You should know what a tangent is. You should know what a secant is. You should know what a chord is. You should know the difference between all these different types of angles that we just talked about. How to identify an inscribed angle. How to identify an outside angle, and a central angle. All those different ones. We had a whole sheet of vocab for circles. We did some vocab exercises with circles. Just make sure that you know those terms. And if I show you a picture and say, hey, is this a tangent, a secant, or a chord, or a radius, that you would be able to pick out and tell me which one it is. So that's what I mean by vocab. Just know those terms that go with our circles.